Oh, hello, yeah. Well, another beautiful morning in late capitalism, isn't it? Yeah. The economy's drawing in somewhat, isn't it, eh? Creeping darkness over the land, yes. Anyway, leaving aside such metaphors, I thought today, we'd have another look at the meaning of language, because it does confuse a lot of people. It does confuse a lot of people what words mean very often. Anyway, let's start with a cautionary tale of racism. Loza Fox. Yeah, he's great, isn't he? Yeah. A man that doesn't like being called a racist and then goes to court and loses. So make of that what you will. But self-proclaimed enemy of the state. Ooh, edgy. Well, about as edgy as you can get for a 40-year-old, in the same way as I'm about as edgy as you can get for a 60-year-old. But that's another story. Anyway, yeah, he posted this up on X. Yeah, I know, I do occasionally dip in when I want to. Anyway, this foreigner has no right to wear the poppy, or to sit in Parliament for that matter. Go home, Zara Sultana. Yes. Loza was unhappy about her and suggested that she needed to go home, which, for those people at the back that aren't quite sure about Zara Sultana, sort of number 2 or number joint 1 in the party of your party with Jezza, is a Birmingham MP and, lives there and was born there. Still, she needs to go home and she shouldn't really sit in Parliament, because she's a wrong 'un. Yes, nothing to do with race, you understand. Nothing to do with race, just not at all. It's just that if you are a certain type of person with a particular skin hue of a particular religion, then you shouldn't be an MP or something. I don't really know. It's Loza. It's very, very hard. I mean, people talk about on-set dementia with Trump. I don't know with some of these people. It's hard to tell. Anyway, that prompted something of a backlash. There was the one that appears to be doing the rounds is Barry Malone. No, me neither. She's from Birmingham. You tedious racist trick, I think that is. Yes. Which led, various right-wing commentators to chip in. And today I thought we'd unpack the language, the words that Carl Benjamin, he of the Lotus Eaters, is using here. She's also not natives, you tedious, bloviating traitor. Yes, good use of the word you there, I think, yes. Anyway, not native. You see, that sparked my little interest there, because I was thinking, well, what exactly is a native? If you think about it, we often associate the word American with native, but we don't think of Trump as being necessarily a native New Yorker, or indeed a native American of any description, do we? Because we tend to mean native as something else. But what Carl is doing here, of course, is suggesting that Ms. Sultana can't be a native because she doesn't share the right characteristics, which one might argue about, Donald Trump, for example. But that got me thinking as to exactly what, therefore, would make Zara a native. Would it be, for example, that her grandparents were born in this country? Imagine that she had a set of grandparents that were both white. Would she, therefore, qualify as being a native? I think that Carl would argue no, that wouldn't. So what about great-grandparents then? Let's imagine that half of her great-grandparents were white. Would that make her a native then? Gets slightly trickier, doesn't it? Because if she looked slightly different, and I think that's realistically what we're talking about here, yeah? Then possibly. And how far back do we go? I mean, for example, how far back does Carl's, nativism go? Because what he's really meaning here is what people look like and how long they've been around. Now, I think by any standards, I would be a native Englishy type, British, whatever those words mean, type, right? Because I can, trace my ancestors in this country. I get my surname, which is Irish, from somebody that came across here probably in the very early 1800s. Not entirely sure. It's round about that point because, hey, records and all that stuff. But most people, I think, would agree that, well, like it or not, I'm a native English type, right? Yeah, that kind of fits. But the problem I have with Carl here is he's not actually talking about various things, or at least he's slightly muddled, because what he really means is what people look like, and realistically on a set of criteria that, to me looks always suspiciously like those kind of Nazi charts as to exactly how you become Jewish, as to what your great-grandparents did, or something similar, which is, very, very arbitrary, because it is arbitrary, isn't it? Because if you have, for example, a great-grandparent who is from, I don't know, let's say somewhere like Japan, That doesn't make you a non-native Brit, does it? It doesn't work that way, Carl. But what Carl means here, of course, because he's a sensible centrist, a bit like, our good friend Loza, of course, is what people look like and whether or not, for example, using the other word he likes to use, traitor, as to what exactly it is, the side of the line that he's decided is important, that they fall down on. And in terms of Mrs. Sultana's side of the line, well, she's the wrong religion, and that's a bad religion. Not a good religion like the other two Abrahamistic religions. Might come on to those just at the end, but a bad one. And that's what he's decided. And also, he would decide the same thing. You see, I would also be a traitor, even though, complicated, I know I'm a native Brit, or English, or something. Tricky, isn't it? Tricky language. But that also then led me to think about, for example, well, some of the people that Carl and Loza hang around with. I mean, you might well want to think, for example, about Friar Calvin Robinson. So, if we have a look at Friar Calvin Robinson, one would have to say, well, is he a native? Is he? Because he doesn't look, according to Carl's criteria, like a native, and certainly I know he's living in the States and he's certainly not a Native American. So what does that make Carl? What does that make Carl's mate, Calvin Robinson? Tricky, isn't it? Well, the answer, of course, is, well, we sort of bend the rules according to who our mates are. A bit like Loza does, a bit like loads of them on the right do, because after all, they can't possibly be racist because, they're quite happy to accept large amounts of money from Muslim businessmen. That's okay, and make them chairman or something similar. But there are others on the Lotus Eaters, yeah? Other people with fairly dodgy surnames, one might say. I mean, when we when we look at this guy, for example, one has to say, well, I don't think he's Welsh, is he? No, wasn't even born in this country. Didn't even come here until his 20s, basically. So what are we to make of those people as to how native they are and whether or not they should go home? And the answer, of course, is, well, in our culture war, in our very, very shallow culture war, we have to make up rules according to different people, depending on whether or not they're on our side. It's that left-right thing again. It realistically isn't about race as such, but it's certainly about lefty-righty stuff, yeah? And even if you're born, the other side of the European Union, and probably with a kind of DNA heritage that would normally make Carl scream, then you're okay. But not in my book, obviously. Traitor and all that stuff. Yes, there's a lot of it about. Now, if you want to live in a world whereby there are various sort of attributes that we think are positive with people or negative, then, you start to section people up, don't you? And then you have to get into that whole kind of, mixing them up, that kind of intersectionality, which is perhaps exactly where we are on the left. And it's good to see Carl on that basis joining us. And in very, very related news, I was enormously pleased at the latest Free Speech Union and, Lord Young's boy, Lord Young, piping up about, somebody has been found that it's okay to basically criticise Islam because it's a belief structure. And I thought, that's really good, Lord Young. Can you please explain to me why we've still got the IHRA definition in and around Jewish people and why you're going to defend that? In your own time, I'll give you a week or so. Because that's another tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, in the sense that there are certain people, they're brown, Muslim, that we really, really have problems with, and there are other people who are maybe less brown, but not necessarily, but certainly not Muslim, in which case they're absolutely fine. Yes, judging a man, or indeed a woman, on the content of their character, or at least whereabouts they are in terms of whether or not we can call them communists. I think that's it. Am I missing something? Yes. Well done, Carl. Well done, Loza. Well done, all of you. Yeah. Do live in a very complicated world that you've made complicated yourself, but please don't squirm when someone like me asks awkward questions. Tricky, isn't it? Tricky. Still, I would say that I'm sure that at least one of my grandparents or great-grandparents, it's great-great-grandparents, was probably a dodgy type. Not like Carl. Obviously, he can trace his ancestors back to, the Saxons who, Yeah, I don't know what happened to the people before the Saxons, Carl. Are they natives? Are they more natives? What exactly is it? Are the Irish more British than you are? Questions. Do have a lovely Monday, and remember, if it seems a little bit difficult, it's probably because the basic concept that they're using is a little bit naff. Enjoy. Have a lovely one. Enjoy the weather at least. It is, well, not raining. That's a plus. Enjoy.